So there's been interest at the game shop's basement for Spelljammer. What is Spelljammer? Spelljammer came out for D&D in the late 80s and early 90s, ran for about 5 or 6 years as a product line, and people either loved it or hated it. It had fans that thought that it was really, really cool, and it had detractors that thought it was stupid. There really wasn't anybody in the middle. However, one thing that both sides agreed on was that it definitely didn't feel like D&D. I mean, the people who they liked it, but they admitted, no, this isn't really D&D. And the people that hated it, well, that was the main reason they hated it, because it wasn't really like D&D. So, why isn't it like D&D? What's going on? What's Spelljammer? Okay, so Spelljammer was, well, I really can't put it any better than they put it in the original booklet in the top booklet in the box set. So when I was a teenager, like 18 or 19 years old, I bought Spelljammer box set when it was new, ripped the plastic off of it, and inside the first book at the top of the box set, it said something like, what if the laws of outer space, instead of being discovered by people like Galileo, Copernicus, and Einstein, what if instead they had been discovered by Elminster, Mordenkainen, and Fistendantilus? Notice how they picked one of the major wizards of each one of the three main worlds they had at the time. Elminster representing Forgotten Realms, Mordenkainen representing Greyhawk, and Fistendantilus representing Dragonlance. But yeah, so if outer space was a mystical type of place instead of a sci-fi type of place, then ships could fly out there. Just get into the magical flying ship, get into the sky, just keep going. And sci-fi concepts like hard vacuum or needing a spacesuit and stuff like that, would not exist so much because that wasn't part of fantasy. And before people got a modern sci-fi concept of outer space, people did dream of what was up there, or tell stories of things that were beyond the sky and stuff like that. So what if that's how it turned out to be? And why not in D&D? I mean, if it's the Forgotten Realms or Mystara or a Magic the Gathering world or your own homebrew world, why not think about what might be up there in a fantasy way instead of a sci-fi way? So that's basically it. It's fantasy magical space. So no spaceships do not have to be enclosed, and usually they look, they don't have to be enclosed. You don't have to wear a spacesuit, but you go to other worlds, and there are strange, exotic worlds, and this was during the second edition days for D&D, and so there was a series called Monstrous Compendiums. They didn't have monster manuals for second edition, they had Monstrous Compendiums. And there was some huge number of Monstrous Compendiums for Spelljammer. There were like 4 or 5 of them. And they came up with creatures for Spelljammer that they've never printed anywhere else. The most famous thing that people know from Spelljammer is actually Boo, the miniature giant space hamster, who accompanies the Ranger Minsk in Forgotten Realms. So in one of the races that's has a big influence in Spelljammer are the gnomes, because gnome tinkers, gnome artificers, they figured out how to get ships to go out there. And of course, gnomes are often silly, and one of the things that the gnomes did was they bred giant space hamsters. So it's not just a gag. Boo is not a normal hamster that just gets called a giant space hamster. He actually is a miniature giant space hamster, because if you look in a Spelljammer Monstrous Compendium, there's an entry for the giant space hamsters with all sorts of different kinds, including, like, for example, the giant saber-tooth space hamster. Well, one of the varieties, I think there's like 10 or 12 varieties, but one of the varieties is a miniature giant space hamster that was bred to be small as pets for children. So the gnomes, because gnomes are silly, they go to all the trouble of magically breeding giant hamsters from little normal real life hamsters. And then after they've bred the giant hamsters and they want to divide them up into sub-breeds, one of their little sub-breeds is they breed them small again to be pets for children. Don't just give them the original hamsters as pets for children. Breed them up really big, and then when you're dividing the breeds into sub-breeds, make a miniature one. So, yeah, Boo from Forgotten Realms, Minsk's ranger pet. He actually is a miniature giant space hamster that is a Spelljammer thing. So Spelljammer has had all kinds of influences on the regular D&D worlds, that and the setting as a whole, that may kind of go unrecognized. But there have been questions lately about, hey John, would you run Spelljammer? And most of what I'm getting is new people who maybe weren't even born when Spelljammer was released. Yeah, that makes me feel old. But people who weren't even born when Spelljammer was released, but they've heard about it or they've watched a YouTube video about it, and they just want to know what was this like. They want to form their own opinion from playing it themselves. That's going to be fun. So right now at Game Shop's Basement on Friday nights, we've got a Spelljammer game going, and if you want in on it, go to www.gameshopsbasement.com. Find it on Friday night in our schedule, click on the link, and I think I started with like 8 seats open. I think about 3 or 4 of them are filled already. So yeah, Spelljammer, it's a thing. Until next time, I'll see you in game. So right now I'm sitting outside on a patio making D&D videos as part of what I do to get paid. I'm a professional game master, and if you're a game master and you've thought of making some money at it, you can too. We have at the Game Shop's Basement a 7 days to Pro GM course that teaches in 7 lessons what took me 50 days to do, to build up my business to the point where I don't need my job anymore. So that's kind of exciting. Or maybe you just want to make a little extra money, have a little bit of a diverse income stream. That's kind of a smart thing to do these days with the world being all crazy. Or you might want something that you can work from home without having to go anywhere. Well, check into Pro DMing. So at GameShopsBasement.com, at the top of the webpage, we've got a banner that will take you to a page where you can learn more information about the 7 days to Pro GM course. And it's fun. It's exciting. Check it out.